Hi guys, welcome to episode 2 of our series on the 6 daily habits that are going to change your life. If you didn't see part 1, that was our introduction to the 6 habits, and I definitely suggest going and checking that out so you have an overview of what we're talking about and why, and then come back and watch this, where what we're going to do today in episode 2 is talk about our number 1 habit, which is breathing through your nose and good proper breathing, good quality breathing, and then kind of get a little bit deeper into it, why it's important and how it kind of affects everything else. Because like I said in the first episode, every one of these habits is going to affect everything that you do. The body is not just a bunch of parts, it's systems. It is a system. Everything works together. Everything is everything. And every one of these things is going to affect everything that you do, and everything that you do is going to affect every one of these habits. So there's kind of a two-way street there. I'll get into that a little bit. But the reason that I want to make breathing number 1 is because even though like I said, every one of these habits is going to affect everything that you do, the one that you're going to do most often is breathing. You breathe 23,000 times a day, roughly. And kind of for that same reason, I think most people take breathing for granted. Like, if you don't breathe, you die. And if you're still alive, you might think, oh, great, like, I'm breathing, I'm fine, I'm an expert, I've been doing this for years. But most people are breathing poorly, and it's really affecting everything that they do. It's affecting health, it's affecting, execution of the rest of their habits and exercise and that kind of stuff. If you're not breathing well, it's hard to do anything well. Like I said, you're taking 23,000 breaths. It's really hard to be successful when you're doing something wrong 23,000 times a day. That's going to add up. Dysfunction is dysfunction, and dysfunctional breathing has a lot of negative effects. Dysfunctional breathing, you're obviously going to have breathing issues like asthma or sleep apnea, where you kind of hold your breath in your sleep, and it's a very, very common problem that's becoming more and more common, and it's something that can be fixed by good quality breathing. Asthma can be fixed by good quality breathing, but there's also going to be other health issues. There's digestive issues like heartburn, acid reflux, irritable bowel syndrome, and those things are going to be affected because your digestive system is affected by your respiratory system. Having good function of your lungs and deep abdominal muscles like the diaphragm, that movement is going to help move food through your system. Everything's interconnected. All these systems work together, like I said, as one. It's all one big system. Nothing's going to stand alone. Everything's going to come back to the breath. And if you're not breathing properly, it's going to affect your posture. It's going to affect your mood. It's going to affect how you digest food. Like I said, it's going to affect your mood. It's going to affect your physiological state. And give me a sec. We'll get back into that deeper. But there's going to be chronic stress from poor breathing quality, and that's going to result. Chronic stress is literally the cause of 99% of all diseases and inflammation and those kind of issues. So let's talk about what proper breathing is. Proper breathing is nasal breathing specifically. The nose is made for breathing. Your mouth is made for talking and eating. And there's very specific reasons why. You have nose hairs, for example, that are going to filter out the air. So you're breathing in air, anywhere, especially like if you live in a city, you're going to be breathing dirty quality air, or you're just around cars and engines and any kind of exhaust. You need those nose hairs and other parts to filter out the air that's coming in so that you can get the best quality oxygen. It's also going to warm that oxygen. It's also going to add nitrous oxide to that oxygen as you bring it in. It's also going to warm the air. So all these things, the nose is this filtering system that's helping regulate the oxygen that you come in. When you breathe through your mouth and you kind of gasp and you bring in that, it could be cold air, it could be dirty air, it's all rushing in. That's also going to be, it's bad for your teeth, it's bad for your breath, it's bad for your health in general. So that's the first thing, is just the function of the nose and the function of the lungs and the respiratory system is designed to go through your nose. In addition to that, like I said, having the lungs and diaphragm move is going to affect other systems, like digestion, for example. So you want to make sure that you're bringing air in through your nose, and then you're getting a nice, big, deep breath. When I say deep, I don't mean big. Deep meaning, further below the surface. Like if you're looking at a pool, the deep end isn't the deep end because there's so much water. It's the deep end because the bottom of the pool is so much lower than the surface. So if you think of your nose where the oxygen is coming in as your surface, you want to get all the way to that deepest part of the bottom of your lungs and get the air down there so that it can fill your lungs and expand and do everything it's supposed to do. And that way you're getting the best quality air, it's getting filtered in through your lungs and then into your bloodstream, and everything's going to be working right. Unfortunately, what doesn't happen when you're not breathing correctly and you're taking shallow breaths and fast breaths through your mouth, you're getting too much oxygen, so you're oversaturating, so you're lowering your ability to handle CO2 and you feel like you're almost drowning and gasping for air. It makes this stressful situation. You might not even notice that it's happening. But from a functional standpoint, the reason that we are able to breathe through our mouth is an emergency situation. You need to get air in, you need to get air in fast. An example of this would be, you think ancient humans, you think about a caveman, and he's out in the woods and he's, hunting, and he hears something, and all of a sudden the hairs stick up on the back of his neck, and he swings around, he sees there's a saber-toothed tiger, and now all of a sudden snaps right into fight or flight. This is the sympathetic nervous system, that immediate response where you need to stay alive. It's an emergency. Now we're gonna say he's running, and he's gonna run and try and get away from that tiger. So all the blood from his body is gonna go to his legs and his muscles. He's breathing fast, rapidly through his mouth. He's expanding his chest, but not taking the time to get deep breaths into his lungs. And this is a panic state. It's breathing induced by a panic state. But what happens is when he gets away from the tiger and he does survive, then he's going to naturally slow his breathing down. He's going to breathe through his nose. He's going to breathe deeper. That blood that rushed to his muscles is going to go back to, maybe he just ate, and it's going to be able to go back to his stomach and help aid in that digestion. It's going to help go through and deal with things that need to be dealt with. But it's a two-way street. So, like I said before, and I'm going to say a million times, everything is everything. Nothing happens by itself. So his psychological state, the panic when he sees this tiger, is going to influence his breathing. But his breathing, in the same sense, is going to influence his brain and his psychological state. So now if you look at modern man, and if we're sitting, we're on our cell phone, and we're hunched over, and we're in this position is protection. The shoulders rolled forward, your vital organs are all here, you're protecting yourself, and you're in this tight position, your head's down, you're slumped over. But also, you're already being in that poor posture, you're telling your body that there's something wrong, we need to protect ourselves. But also what's happening is everything's restricted. You're not able to expand your lungs, you're not able to get all that oxygen that you need, your lungs aren't able to do their job, and you're just breathing in the top part of your lungs and expanding your chest, because that's where the breathing happens. So you're kind of, as you bring in a breath, and this is a good test, if you take a breath in and your shoulders raise, then you're not breathing deep enough, you're not breathing in the way that your body is supposed to function. You're expanding by raising your shoulders, lifting your rib cage, and getting oxygen just into that top part of your lungs. But this is also, like I said, so if you're sitting, you're on your phone, you're hunched over, you're sucking your belly in because you don't want people to think you're fat, whatever the issue is with your posture, if you're not getting enough oxygen into your lungs, and in the right spot and you're just breathing in your chest, your brain is perceiving that signal. Like I said, it's a two-way street. So the positioning that you're in is telling your brain, oh, there's stress happening. Because in the same way that the stress in your brain went to your body and got it into that position tells your body, okay, tells your brain, sorry, yes, we are in stress. Protect yourself, let's ramp it up. And you go straight into that sympathetic state. So you're never really going to relax. You're never going to recover like you're supposed to. You're supposed to be able to go into sympathetic when there's a stressful situation and then come out of it and relax and recover. So you have your fight and flight sympathetic response or freeze, and then you have your parasympathetic response of rest, recover, recuperate. But if you're constantly in that stressed position with bad posture, bad breathing, then there's constantly stress and your body's going to find something to fight. You're going to be in fight mode. You're going to start fighting off your own body. You're going to start creating chronic inflammation and other issues that come with chronic stress. You're not going to be able to digest as well. So because I was saying before, you're restricted, but also the blood supply isn't going to be there because your blood supply is moving elsewhere. And you're going to have all these issues. And I think of how to word this correctly, but you're going into this sort of quantity over quality mode, and everything's rushed and panicked rather than doing things the right way. Where if you can slow yourself down, focus on being good posture, breathing well, taking a deep breath in through your nose, not using your mouth, nice and slow, and bringing that air in, expanding your belly and trying to expand out into the sides and get as much oxygen into your lungs as you can, then you're going to be able to put yourself into that parasympathetic state where you rest and recover and you reduce stress and you reduce fatigue and your rest is actually restful. So that's why I'm saying that you can't separate anything from the breath. You think of breathing as bringing air into your lungs, getting into your blood supply, and the more the better, the faster. It doesn't matter, in through your mouth, in through your nose, but that's wrong because there's so many other things that are affected. Everything is everything. We'll say it again. I'm going to keep saying it. You cannot separate your breathing from anything you do, and it's more specific than just because you're out of breath. It's a stress thing. It's helping the other systems to function. It's your psychological state. So that's going to affect, other, mental health issues, depression and anxiety. You're going to be anxious if you're always, gasping for air, if you're always restricted, if your posture and your breathing is telling your brain that there's something wrong and your brain doesn't know what's wrong, you're going to be anxious. You're going to be stressed out all the time. And it's really, really dangerous. We really can't say it enough. You can't overstate this. This is really, really important. And obviously there's going to be a time and place for breathing through your mouth. You're doing in the middle of a crazy workout, you're doing, tons of burpees or ball slams or something, you're really stressed out. Then that's what the stress is. That's acute stress. That's what we want. That's you putting yourself in a stressful situation so that you can overcome it and adapt to it. And in those emergency states, you're going to use all the tools at your disposal. But you have to know that when the workout is over or whatever the stressful situation is over, you're going back to good quality breathing. You're going back to slow, deep nasal breathing, and you're nourishing your body. Another thing, so there's a lot of people who have done a lot of research on this. Some examples, Dr. Belissa Vranich, who wrote the great book, Breathe, very helpful and simple to understand. Patrick McKeown, who wrote The Oxygen Advantage, and I believe his company is The Oxygen Advantage. And he specifically talks a lot about overbreathing, which is another thing that I think we take for granted, this concept. Everybody knows that you can eat too much. Even no matter if it's the healthiest foods, you can overeat, and that's going to stress your body too much, and it's going to put your body in a difficult situation. You can drink water. Even you'll hear little kids think it's hilarious that you can literally drown yourself by drinking too much water. Even though water is so healthy and so important, you can have too much of it. Sunlight is so important, but we all know that you have to be careful not to get burned by the sun, because you can have too much sun exposure. But no one ever talks about too much breathing, too much oxygen. But most people are in this state of mouth breathing where you're bringing in way too much oxygen, you're breathing too much, and then the problem starts to compound on itself. I mentioned earlier that when you're breathing constantly and aggressively, you're lowering your body's ability to handle CO2, which is the exhale. It's the gases that you don't use and you exhale. And if you're constantly breathing in, you're just going to keep triggering this response to, I have to get more, I have to get more, I have to get more. And you're breathing in so much, there's too much air. And then when you're without any air, you can't handle it because your CO2 response is so high. So it's another thing where I keep saying slow breaths. You want to breathe as little as possible, as slowly as possible. So that you want to breathe so slow that your nose hairs don't feel it. And you cannot feel anything coming in. Everything's relaxed and calm, and that's what I'm talking about. Is that down regulation after the stress, where you're telling your body it's okay now. We can rest, recover, regroup, and start dealing with some of the other stuff, where we can focus on eliminating some of that inflammation from the stress that we went through, and adapting and repairing and coming back better the next day or later that day or whatever it is, just improving, rather than just constantly being ramped up and being in a stressful situation where your body can't handle all the other things you need to do. I think I was listening. There are people. I said Dr. Bosa Vranich, Patrick McCown's they're both great references. Brian McKenzie does a lot of work in this field as well. Rob Wilson from Art of Breath, Laird Hamilton, and everyone else over at XPT and doing underwater stuff. A lot of incredible stuff. Wim Hof, so much great breathing work, and he's been so important for the concept of how the breath alters the physiological state and the nervous system and autonomous nervous system, and he's actually able to, through breath, control that himself. I think he's so interesting to look into. But this is also stuff that yogis have been saying for thousands of years, talking about that the breath is the life force, and that you need to control your breath, and that's going to control everything else. And I think that it's this idea gets lost. Like I was saying before, people we just assume that because you breathe all day that you know how to breathe, and there's so much more to it. And I just want to kind of leave you with that. Is just think about breathing as slow, controlled, nasal breathing deep into your lungs, and not that mouth breathing, aggressive, rapid breath. We have the term mouth breather for a reason. When somebody says mouth breather, you know exactly what they're talking about, you know why. So make sure that that's not you. Don't be a mouth breather. Be a nasal breather, be an efficient breather. Use this every day. Change your breathing habits. It'll change your life. Thanks a lot. Check back next week and we'll hit you with our habit number 2, and we're going to help you change your life one habit at a time. Thanks a lot.